Breaking news. Nissan and Honda and Mitsubishi, they just got into the club as well. But Nissan and Honda have just detailed what they're going to be working on together in order to catch up. They are behind Tesla, they're behind BYD, they're behind the Chinese automakers that are software defined, that can switch on a dime, that have huge economies of scale. Honda and Nissan, they know that they need to work together in order to survive in an uncertain future. But we're going to detail how Honda and Nissan is working together, first by hitting the 5 major areas they're going to be collaborating on. And then they did have a whole press conference. And so the press conference is like well over an hour, 20 minutes talking about these things, which I'll recap for you. And the last 50 minutes or so was Q&A with reporters and journalists asking Mibe on the right from Honda and Uchida-san on the left from Nissan. And they did a really good job. Honestly, this seems like maybe not a match made in heaven at first, but with how much benefit they're both going to get from these two, plus Mitsubishi chipping in, with how much benefit, mutual benefit they're going to get out of this, not only are we going to see more price competitive Nissan and Hondas, they're going to get better in every single regard, even if they might lose a little bit of their identity along the way. Guys, if you're excited about this team up with Nissan, Honda, and sprinkling that Mitsubishi in there, if you're excited for it, smash the like button. Make sure you're subscribed because this keeps on evolving. The original announcement that they were working together came back on March 15th. And so it's been 100 days later. Add Mitsubishi in there, and we have a lot of developments going on. And they've kind of established the groundwork of their partnership going forward. I'm going to get right into the points here. I'm not going to read it word for word. Essentially, the first thing that they're working on is a software-defined vehicle platform. Already laid the groundwork and will complete research in 1 year. And then based on the results, consider the possibility of mass production development. We won't see this software-defined vehicle platform for a ways after. And once we get to the Q&A, we get a little bit more details on timeline. How about the batteries? This is really interesting. So of course they'll have high capacity, high cost options to lower capacity, low cost options, different chemistries, things like that. But the big thing here is the advantage of volume and the swapping of these batteries for Nissan and Honda products. Let's just say the Rogue and the CR-V EV, like in 2029 or something. Let's say those vehicles come out. They will have the exact same battery specifications, the same size, the same supplier more than likely. All right, so you would be able to swap a battery from Nissan over to Honda. It's very much like the Koreans do, right? Hyundai and Kia. They are able to essentially have the same commonality of e-axles and batteries, the same motors that are in an EV6 are the same that are in an Ioniq 6, and the same batteries as well. All right, so they are going to be sharing powertrains, inverters, all that good stuff, and most importantly for the cost of the vehicle, batteries. They will be sharing batteries and standardizing them between the two companies. Not only that, Nissan is looking to use Honda's batteries that will be made in conjunction with LG Energy made in Ohio. That should start in 2028. So Honda in some ways is kind of being a battery supplier to Nissan after 2028. Very fascinating. Energy services, that's mainly for Japan. And the fourth area of commonality here, they will be pretty much sharing vehicle technology between each other. So think of well, the Altima is supposed to get canceled, but think of like an Altima and Accord having very, very similar specifications, same e-axles, same batteries, or even in the future, that's not fully battery electric, same hybrid systems. We know Nissan's very successful e-Power, not successful in the United States because they never brought it here. All right, they're still trying to figure out how to bring it here, but maybe they just scrap it, work with Honda, they put their hybrid minds together and work on a next-gen hybrid technology together. That is definitely within the realm of capacity here. So we're going to get into the Q&A. Uchida from Nissan, Mibe from Honda took the podium. One of the first questions I got was, why team up? Well, they need to increase allies in order to survive in the market. Part supplies and parts in general, raw material costs have all surged. Not only that, the competitors, especially in China, where these two companies traditionally have had a big footprint, they've lost a ton of ground to the upstart Chinese companies. So they need to team up in order to have a fighting chance to survive in the future. Emerging players are moving too fast. They can't catch up on their own budgets. They can't catch up on their own power, I guess. So they have to use economy of scale with this new alliance, okay? Not only that, it also splits costs for research and development, but once you get those ideas, those products, e-axles and batteries produced at double the volume, that means pieces will cost less. That will bring the cost of their vehicles down so they can be more competitive in China, the United States. They don't know if there's going to be a capital alliance. They're not willing to discuss that yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new company like Honda and Sony, right? They kind of have their own, well, they 100% have their own company called Afeela. Don't be surprised if Nissan and Honda come up with their own company that's going to be the mastermind behind the e-axles and the batteries and the software that will go into future Honda, Nissans, and Mitsubishis. Honda and Nissan engineers are already meeting many times every single week. They have cultural differences between each company to set aside, but there's lots of commonality, of course. They're both Japanese automakers, and they have similar suppliers as well. What about Nissan and Renault's alliance? Well, Uchida really didn't talk much about Renault even after this question. Nissan would much rather work with Honda right now to build global EVs. Now, Uchida did say that Renault is important for Europe and how Nissan wants to have some sort of footprint and stronghold in Europe, but they can't do it without Renault. And so in Europe, it doesn't look like Honda and Nissan necessarily will be sharing this technology together for their brands there. Honda's really, really small in Europe. Nissan, I would say medium size in Europe, but they've begun to shrink. In order to stay in that market, they need to team up with Renault, and they've already invested in the Ampere software-defined vehicle platform with that French automaker. Uchida straight up said, we need more partners than Renault. Obviously, where has Renault got them? Initially, it was good when they were being helmed by Carlos Ghosn. We had economies of scale, but they seeked really, really cheap parts and didn't bring enough technology over time, and now they're just left behind with undesirable cars in the North American market. Besides the Frontier, besides the Pathfinder, besides their sports cars, which I still find quite good. And I have the Sentra this week for review. That vehicle, don't judge it by the CVT quite yet. I'm excited to review it for you guys and share my thoughts on it. Hans Greimel from Automotive News. I quote his articles all the time. He reports to Automotive News throughout the world, but of course I read the American Automotive News the most. He asks, why team up with an automaker that is stuck in the past, essentially, instead of a software company that can easily or more easily provide a better software-defined experience, maybe get out to market a little bit quicker? Before Nissan and Honda answered that, I was just thinking about Toyota. Toyota has gone so hard in the paint with investing in their own software team called Woven. But Toyota's Woven is building Arene, their software-defined vehicle platform, I guess you could say. So Toyota's really doing it in-house, but Toyota is a bigger company. They have more money to put into research and development. The core software will be developed essentially between Honda and Nissan. They're both working with other companies to tailor the software. And this software is supposed to hit, these software-defined vehicles are supposed to hit between the 2027 and 2030. Much further advanced than what's coming out with the initial zero EVs from Honda. That's kind of what they're insinuating. This is going to be a much bigger step than what we're going to have with the initial batch of Honda's EVs, which come out in 2026. Best Car was asking about, hey, half your lineup's going to be EV in theory by 2030. What's the other half? What are you going to do with hybrids and plug-in hybrids? Again, Nissan and Honda were pretty quiet on this, but I have no doubt that they're going to be sharing hybrid platforms and technologies together. Now, what's interesting, one of the questions was, how are you going to convince suppliers that you're going down this route? Are some suppliers going to be left out? And that could be the case, but the major suppliers will benefit from this. Currently, their e-axle supplier, which includes the motor, the inverter, and the transmission in some e-axles, but it's all supplied by Hitachi Astemo. And I pulled them up. Here's Hitachi Astemo's powertrain systems. What's pretty interesting is that look at all these parts they make. All right, of course, the motor, the inverter are right here. But look, they're kind of separate right now, at least in the current technology. This is all going to be kind of merged together in one package, which will reduce the cost, of course, reduce the size that they take up, and the efficiencies will go through the roof. Okay, so they're already doing this with this company, and that's not going to change. Nissan and Honda also work software through Google, but they're really dancing around this topic. Either they're not going to work with Google at all, or they're going to really work with Google and build their software on the backs of Google. I'm expecting it to be a little bit more of, hey, they're going to be working with Google really tightly with this software-defined vehicle setup. We know there are other manufacturers working with Google with software-defined vehicles. So you look at Polestar and Volvo, for example. But I think Nissan and Honda might be doing the same thing. Again, time will tell. There's no official announcement on that, but I don't think Google's going anywhere with these companies. So make sure you're subscribed, because this is an evolving situation between these three companies. Who has the most to gain from this? In my opinion, it is Nissan. Nissan right now is falling the fastest in China, even though Honda is not far behind. Mitsubishi already pulled out of China. So all three of them are like, hey, our Chinese game, it's over. What are we going to do? Well, we have to work together if we want any sort of shot of surviving in China. But if these Chinese companies keep growing and exporting their vehicles to other countries, that's really going to hurt these Japanese companies in North America, even if we have huge tariffs on these Chinese vehicles. It's already hurting them quite badly in Southeast Asia. Mitsubishi and Honda are reeling from super cheap surplus Chinese EVs just flooding the market down there at bargain basement prices. So it will be interesting to see how fast they can evolve together, how good of a product they can provide, and how affordable they can make these products in the near future. Thank you guys for watching, catching the comments. Long live Honda, Nissan, Mitsubishi. Hopefully this makes their companies much more competitive in an uncertain automobile future. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.